Hi, I'm Jack Shannon. Let's talk shop floor mobile, specifically the work order material module. Welcome to the Shop Floor Mobile educational series. In this video, Nick Mendolia, our Director of Client Solutions, is going to demonstrate the material functionality within Shop Floor Mobile. He's going to focus on the role of a material handler. Take it away, Nick.
Hi, this is Nick Mendolia from Visual South. So for material handling purposes, a material handler will most likely use something like a tablet, such as an iPad or a Surface tablet or anything else that's easy to move around the shop floor with as they're picking materials. They may use a phone or another device the size of a phone. And remember that we have the ability, as the device gets smaller, to change our screen from a button format to a list format. So depending on what would make more sense for the size of the screen, that's what the material handler would choose. I'm going to use the button format for now, but I'll switch probably to the list format as I go into the section. So I'm just going to go into my work order material, and really that's just what this is designed for the most part, although you can do a few other things, is for how do I transact materials to and from work orders. And that's what most of these menus that you're going to see here are. And notice that I switched mine to a list view because I like looking at it in a list view on smaller devices. So the first option I have is issues to work orders. Right? This is when you have a work order and there are materials that work order is requiring. And generally, the normal process might be to print out a pick list. And as an example for a pick list, it might look something like this. And notice I'm using QR codes because my device is an iPad or a phone, so easy to use the camera on those with the QR code. But you would have a piece of paper to go out, print this for a particular work order that you're picking, go out and then take pictures of each of these QR codes as you pick the materials that are due for that particular order if you're doing one at a time. And if we are using scanners or barcodes or QR codes, one of the other things that I can do prior to coming into this screen is I can tell it that I am using this in scan mode. And if I choose scan mode, watch what the window will look like. Not only does it put a barcode up here, but when I go into each one of these options now, notice how these fields are grayed out because it just wants me to scan that QR code that you saw on that pick list a moment ago. So just scanning that one code will fill in all of this information for me. I don't have a scanner attached to this, or this is an emulator, so I do not have that ability. So I'm going to be typing that in. So I'm just going to remove that check mark from that scan mode function. This way I can type it in. So for an example, I can either type in the information. Of course, I would normally scan it, but I can also choose it from the search if I want to also. And in this case, I'm going to use my work order 5000 as an example. I'm just going to double click on that, and that fills everything in for me as if I did scan it. And the next thing it is asking me is what item, because we have multiple items on that order. So if I tell it what piece number I'm going to grab, it'll know that. So I'm looking at a B1241 or an R6676. So I would tell it which one I'm actually issuing. I would adjust my quantity. If I'm not issuing the full amount, it'll default to the full amount for me, in which case all I need to do now is hit submit. I'm not going to do that because we're going to show some other information pertaining to this and different ways that we can issue material also. But it also lets me confirm the warehouse and location that this item is coming from. If I'm not taking it from that warehouse and location, I can choose any other warehouse and location that has quantities in it that are associated with that particular part. I'm going to go back to my main screen. So that's issuing materials if you're doing one at a time to a work order. An issue return is really the same thing, except now you're telling it I am taking the material off the job and back into inventory. So maybe I over-issued originally and they didn't use it and they're bringing it back, or I issued the wrong part, or there was something wrong with that part and they just want to put it back into inventory and then we'll put it through quality check after that. I can receive from a work order. So that's basically telling it, hey, this work order is done, and I'm now going to receive it into inventory. So at the completion of that entire work order, if I'm not shipping it directly to a customer order, if it's not allocated, I'm going to receive it into inventory. And here's where I just do that. I just simply tell it the work order, which could also be a scan off of that pick list, which would fill all of this in for me. And then I simply tell it how many finished goods I'm receiving. Same thing in reverse, return to a work order. So I already did a receipt from the work order, and I can now return the item. Let's say that they found an issue with quality, or they had to do more work on it. It was received in error. So a return to work order is just a reverse transaction to take it back out of inventory and put it back in WIP, work in process. Issue by work order, if you're familiar with normal issue by exception in Visual, this would be an issue by work order here. So we would come in, and here's where instead of doing one issue at a time for material, now we're telling it we want to issue all of this material. And the nice thing here, which I could see in some of the other screens also, but I waited till now to kind of show this, but I can see all of the materials that are due to that entire job. So I can issue them, and I can tell by looking at my little flags here that there's one material that has a problem. It's not in inventory. It's got a red flag. But all the other ones are good to go. So one of the things I could do is just say, hey, issue them all. And then I do have another sequence after this that I can take that one back. So I can either do one at a time if I wanted to say, hey, I can't issue all of them, so I'll issue one at a time. But if you have a lot and there's only a few exceptions, you can simply issue them all and then come do the reverse to take the two exceptions, or how many exceptions there might have been, back off of that issue and back into inventory, which really you're not doing anything. You're just reversing a transaction to bring it to zero. But the nice thing I can also do here is I do have some more visibility. I can tell by this flat stock that there's some documents associated with it. So I can look and see what those documents are, if there are. So I can see I have two of these documents, and I can look at those if I want to. I can also see if there are any pictures related to this material. A nice thing to do is if you have those pictures associated with that operation, then the material handler can see, he can verify that, yep, that's the part I'm picking and pulling. And I can also see other pictures that might be related to that entire work order. Like here's a picture of the full part. And this is just the requirement that I'm picking that goes to making that part. And it's simply a matter of saying issue all or submit if I am doing one at a time. So I can choose one at a time, submit, or I can issue all and send them all. In this case, there's not a lot here, so maybe I won't issue all. I'll just submit each one individually. And then for the last one, I'm not submitting anything because it doesn't exist in inventory. The other thing I can do here is if this material that I'm issuing was either lot traced or serial number traced, heat number, the button is not lit up because this particular item is not traced. If it was, this button would be lit up where I can click on it and just tell it the lot number or serial number or trace information that goes along with that item. Typical adjust ins, adjust outs. If you're making a small adjustment and you're not really running it through a cycle count necessarily, but you do want to adjust those quantities to get them current immediately, you can do that right there. Location to location moves. I'm moving it from one warehouse and location to another warehouse and location. And then I can look at work order transaction history for a particular work order. Let's say I'll use 3000 as my example here. Let's do sub ID 0. Actually, if I leave that blank, it'll show me all my sub IDs, which is what we're seeing down in the bottom. So I can see all of the information, and of course, if I scroll across, I get more information, which, by the way, I have complete control of what I want to see on that line in my little settings gearbox, which is on just about all of the options. So I pick and choose the data that's important to me, so I don't have to see all of the data that it comes with. I can personalize that to myself. Hey, that is a quick overview of the material handler functionality.
Thanks, Nick. Be sure to check out all of our videos in our educational series. The links are below.